Today, we are diving into one of the most revolutionary and, controversial figures in all of psychology, Melanie Klein. She took Freud's ideas and just ran with them, straight into the mind of a newborn baby. And what she said she found there, well, it changed everything. Okay, let's get into it.
But first, you have to understand this central, kind of heartbreaking paradox about her. This is the woman who built her entire theory on the absolute primal bond between a mother and child. And yet, her relationship with her own daughter, Melita, was completely and totally shattered. We're not just talking about a disagreement. Melita publicly blamed her own mother for her brother's death. This incredible personal tragedy is the key, It's the lens through which she saw the entire human psyche. And that lens, wow, it was shaped by an almost unbelievable amount of loss. To really get a grip on Klein's theories about anxiety, aggression, and all that inner turmoil we feel, you first have to understand the tragedies that basically defined her entire life. Just look at this timeline. It is one gut punch after another. At 18, she loses her father. Okay, tough. But then just 2 years later, her absolute favorite brother, Emmanuel, dies, and it devastates her. A year after that, she marries his friend, a choice she really came to regret because it basically slammed the door on her dream of becoming a doctor. And then, in 1934, her own son, Hans, dies. This constant, relentless exposure to death and grief wasn't just a sad backstory, it became the actual raw material for her life's work.
So let's step away from Klein's external world for a second and dive into the internal one she theorized about. She asked a question that was, for its time, just wild. What is actually going on inside the mind of a newborn baby? And her answer? Well, it would go on to shake the foundations of psychology.
So a lot of people back then, including Anna Freud, kind of saw babies as these cute, blank slates. Klein argued the complete opposite. She said, from the second a baby is born, it has an ego. Sure, it's primitive, it's disorganized, but it's there. And it's strong enough to feel deep anxiety, to use defense mechanisms, and, this is the crucial part, to start forming relationships with the world.
And this right here is the cornerstone of her entire object relations theory. For Klein, a baby doesn't connect with a whole person at first. That's too complex. Instead, it connects with parts, or objects. And what's the very first object? The prototype for every single relationship we will ever have in our lives. The mother's breast. It's not just about food, it is the absolute center of that baby's emotional universe.
And this is where it gets really, really fascinating. Because that first object, it isn't just one thing, it's two. And this brings us to what is probably Klein's most famous and influential idea, splitting.
So, here's the key. For an infant, the world is completely black and white. There are no gray areas. When the baby's hungry and gets milk, it experiences the good breast. That's love, that's security, that's everything wonderful. But when the baby's hungry and crying and the breast isn't there, it experiences the bad breast. That's frustration, anxiety, even persecution. The baby's mind can't yet understand that this is the same breast in two different states. So it splits it into two totally separate things.
So what happens to these two completely opposite images? Well, the infant takes them inside. It swallows them whole, metaphorically speaking. This process is called introjection. The baby literally internalizes a perfect, loving object and a hateful, frustrating one. And according to Klein, these two images become the fundamental, rock-solid building blocks of our ego, of our whole inner world.
Okay, so let's see how this all comes together. This early process of splitting things into good and bad and then taking them in. This isn't just some quirky phase babies go through. Klein argued that this creates the very blueprint for our personality and for every single relationship we have for the rest of our lives.
And this just lays out the whole process perfectly. First, you have the raw experience. Then, the baby's mind splits that experience into all good or all bad. Third, it introjects. It pulls those split images inside. And finally, that's how we develop. Our sense of self, our ego, literally forms around these internal objects. You ever wonder why as adults we can sometimes see a person as a perfect angel one day and a total monster the next? Klein would say that pattern was born right here, in these very first moments of life.
As you can imagine, these ideas were nothing short of explosive. They put this immense psychological complexity inside the mind of an infant. It sparked fears, bitter debates in the psychoanalytic world. But you know what? Their influence was absolutely undeniable.
Her legacy is just enormous. She pioneered using play as therapy for kids, realizing that for a child, their games and their toys are their words. That's how they show you their unconscious world. She also insisted that psychoanalysis wasn't just for troubled kids. It could help healthy kids too. And she was a huge influence on so many later thinkers, especially John Bowlby, who actually studied with her and then went on to develop his groundbreaking attachment theory.
But her rise was full of conflict, and her most famous professional showdown was with Sigmund Freud's own daughter, Anna Freud. It was a fundamental clash of ideas. Anna basically argued that you can't properly analyze young children because their unconscious minds aren't developed enough. And Klein, as we've seen, said the complete opposite, that an incredibly rich, chaotic, powerful fantasy life exists from the moment of birth, making early analysis not just possible but critical. Their disagreement literally split the British Psychoanalytical Society in two.
So, in the end, you see this powerful, unavoidable connection. A life that was just defined by so much loss and so many broken relationships, it gave birth to a theory that was obsessed with our very first bonds, our deepest anxieties, and the internal objects, both good and bad, that every single one of us carries around inside.
Which really leaves us with a provocative question to chew on, doesn't it? The next time you find yourself putting someone on a pedestal or completely demonizing them, just take a second and ask yourself, how much of that is reality and how much is just the echo of a tiny infant's first great divide?